We have the ability to see what's happening on the ground better than anybody.
When the J-Stars arrived in theater and commanders realized how important an asset it was, there was a greater demand placed on the weapons system.
When we're in the air, if they're moving, we see them, and that changes the rules.
J-Stars in the year 2000 is an awesome capability. Now our challenge as we go forward is to evolve our mission even further. I'm awful proud of how we did in Allied Force. We came into Allied Force being new, relatively new. We'd done well on Desert Storm, but we were still a relative unknown to the U.S. Air Force. When we showed up over in the theater, they weren't exactly sure how we could be used. But it became pretty clear, pretty fast, that we were lending an awful lot to the overall team over there of different aircraft that were lending themselves to the fight.
The 93rd Air Control Wing was able to, in 36 hours from notification, get out of town and deploy over to Germany to Operation Allied Force while we still had another aircraft and crews in the Pacific Theater. The story goes deeper than that, though. It was the people who made it all possible.
Well, deploying a wing overseas involves an entire team effort, and an important part of that team is here at home station. We were already deployed in support of operations in the Pacific when we got the order to go to Europe in support of what became known as Allied Force.
We flew over 100 sorties, over 1,200 flying hours, maintained an 80% mission capable rate, and executed flawlessly our schedule, maintaining a 98% aircraft scheduling effectiveness rate. I attribute our success in Allied Force from a logistics perspective to the superb team of civilians and uniformed personnel I had to carry out that mission.
As you can see behind me, we have several of our Joint Stars aircraft. That 707 with the computer technology on board allowed us to look into the country and see what was happening and keep our national leaders informed. That information was only possible by the well-trained crews here at Robins Air Force Base that were ready at a moment's notice to deploy. When we first deployed into Germany, the intent was for us to see what the enemy was doing inside Serbia and in Kosovo itself, or we in the military like to say our Intelligence, Surveillance, and Reconnaissance Mission, or ISR. Airplane got up on station and kept a continuous look at what the ground movers were doing as they moved throughout the country. Once the conflict started, we would keep an eye on where the military columns and other civilian vehicles were moving, and then relay that information to the AOC as well as to some of the other airborne command and control aircraft.
We're being tasked more and more each and every day because of the success that we're having over here. I think the theater has been kind of surprised with what we can provide them, and consequently they're using us a great deal.
Within about a month of us being there, we had the EA-6Bs, the AWACS rivet joint, the British Nimrod, all depending on our sources of information. They realized that we really can see information on the ground and make a difference to the battle.
Doing target development involves taking the onboard radar data, both the MPI and SAR imagery, trying to interpret what it is that you're seeing in terms of movement on the ground, perhaps cross-cue that with other assets that are in the theater to build a truer picture of what it is you see.
Well, generally we're given specific areas, small specific areas of space that we're supposed to look in. Like right here, we're looking for our helicopters to run down this route, and we're looking for any information, any tracks coming in that might be threats to them or simulated threats. We're looking for rotating antennas. We're looking for anything that might be of interest to those helicopters along that route.
At this workstation, we primarily keep contact with the ground stations. Common Ground Station, or CGS as it's more commonly referred to, is a shelter, basically mobile on the back of a truck that receives our information, everything that we produce up on the jet through a surveillance controlled data link or through SATCOM.
They can do operations on the move as they're rolling down with a maneuver unit or whoever they may be assigned to.
The air weapons officers talk to some of the aircraft that we support with targeting data. They can talk to A-10s, F-15s, F-16s, foreign aircraft in coalition warfare, Army and Marine Corps, rotary wing aircraft, Apaches, Cobras, command and control Blackhawks, etc. And what they do is give a target update or a picture brief to those aircraft prior to them engaging a target.
Primarily the threats that we keep track of are first and foremost the air-to-air threat, enemy MiGs, and secondly the enemy ground threats such as surface-to-air missiles, some of the air defense artillery, and some of the new evolving threats such as lasers, chemical weapons, biological weapons. Just have a general overall picture of what's going on in the theater.
The Army would ask for a radar service request if they had a particular area that they either wanted to zoom in on and get more high-resolution data, or if they wanted to do some battle damage assessment, or BDA, after a strike, an artillery strike, if they wanted to see how badly they damaged the area or took out a bridge or whatever, they would ask for a SAR of that particular area so that they could see the effects of their attack.
The more we work with different units and the more we work with different platforms, the more they begin to see the benefit that we can bring to them, the more they see the detail of information that we can bring to them.
I think we're in an evolution. We came into Allied Force as a relatively new weapon system in the U.S. Air Force. But when you teamed us up with the AWACS, with the ABCCC, with the rivet joint, as well as with all the offensive and defensive firepower we had over there, the capability was unbelievable. We saw that not only in the ISR world, where we were doing our surveillance, but in that command and control world where we were a relative unknown, we started to expand out into our full potential.
Being able to transition from the ISR role into the command and control role was directly because of the people we had in theater. Their ability to go from a role they were trained in, ISR, to doing near real-time command and control of assets, attacking enemy forces in theater, is a testament to their professionalism.
There was examples in Allied Force where we would pick up a threat, we would rapidly get the information of what was happening on the ground. We had control over the assets that were in the air, and we went ahead and sent them after targets because we were empowered with the authority to make those kind of decisions. And not only that, but after we hit those targets, folks then would pass us their battle damage assessments. And so instead of having to wait for someone else to make that decision, again, because we were empowered by the air component commander, we went ahead and sent some more aircraft in because maybe we didn't hit a few targets. That is the way that we can overpower and dominate an enemy, and that's what J-STARS means to the fight.
There was one particular target that no one could find. We got intel on it. We took off on a normal mission, went up there and found activity that matched what the intel was on this target. Cross-queued, got confirmation before the end of our station time was up that that was actually the target that no one else could find. Strikes were called in on the target after we got off station, and before we went home that evening for the debrief, they had actually gone in to strike that target based off our updates and the cross-queue, so it was truly a team win. We actually got a good kill on the enemy that day, all because we cross-queued with other assets out there.
Well, one night it was a really late operation, and we had been in the air for probably 15 to 16 hours. And we get some intel from the ground that the Serbs were attacking a small village. And we just happened to be shooting some SARs that we can use with our radar, and we picked out the movement on the ground of the tanks running into the town and literally demolishing the town. And we were able to correlate that with other assets and say, yes, that is what's happening based upon what we saw on the ground. It was pretty amazing, and it really struck home with me saying, we're really making a difference. We're able to get assets in the area to chase those guys off, because it made a difference between people living and dying. Because people were literally dying on the ground.
After the bombing stopped in Kosovo, one of the important things that we were tasked to do was make sure that the Serbs cleared out of the zones. They were given certain lanes and certain gates going out of Kosovo, and one of our taskings was to monitor those lanes and gates to ensure that the armored and wheeled vehicles that the Serb forces had in Kosovo made it out of the country by the deadlines that they were given.
Being able to command a unit in combat is probably the best experience I've had in my life. But with that realization as I was flying over the airplane was the responsibility that we would be putting airplanes into combat. That's a tremendous thing to think about. The young men and women that all the parents send off to us that we train, that we're going to put forward to go and fly and potentially get shot down. Every day I knew as I sent them off that they'd come back, but there was always that worry until I saw them land on the ground.
And our challenge in this wing and our responsibility in this wing is to take that airplane and all that great work that everybody's been doing to get it to us and now build combat capability so the next time we fight we can dominate the enemy even better. And I think that's the challenge we have in the months and years ahead in the 93rd Air Control Wing, is taking that capability and that potential and training every single day, maximizing every single time we fly so that we get better and better and better. Not just by ourselves, but working with the other platforms. We have plans on the books right now as we look to the future to continuously upgrade the capabilities on board of our aircraft. Keep that combat capability evolving, keep exploring, keep looking at new ways of doing business to fight over that battlefield. We've got an open mind. We're not exactly sure where we're going to end up, but we know that we're moving in the right direction. And I think that's the key to the way we do business here in the 93rd.
JSARS has the capability of getting on station very rapidly. We can mobilize in a matter of hours, be in the air and be almost anywhere in the world on station. That's kind of scary, actually, for the enemy. But actually I want them to know that. I want them to know that when we're in the air, if they're moving, we see them. And basically that changes the rules. If we can keep the enemy from moving for 24 hours, we're doing our job. And I think it's a great deterrent, actually.